Whether it's $50 million to fund an Iraqi version of Sesame Street, or dead people on Social Security, or US tax dollars funding terrorist organizations, I think it's fair to say that many people in this country have been stunned by the disclosures that Elon Musk and Doge have made since they got to work. And of course, Elon Musk is now public enemy number one for many people in this country, with the rest cheering him on. The attacks on him have been as predictable and unsurprising as George Soros' attack on President Trump in his speech at the World Enslavement Forum, otherwise known not so fondly as the WEF. And here are some of the propaganda narratives they've been using that you'll probably recognize. Elon Musk is the most powerful man in America, more powerful than Donald Trump. Now that's obviously meant to drive a wedge between Trump and Musk and play on the insecurities that they believe that Trump has. I'm not even sure that it's true. It's what we've been told over and over and over by a press corps that really doesn't have the faintest idea who Donald Trump actually is at all. Partly because they've never even tried to find out, and partly because all they've done is attack him nonstop. So apparently they hate him so much they have no interest in forming an original opinion or trying to separate fact from fiction or propaganda. Another false narrative that they've tried to push was that Musk had no legal authority to do the job that he was tasked by the president to do. So that one just died on the vine pretty quickly without much effort, thanks in part to what appears to be careful work by Trump's team, who at least this time around seem to be a lot more prepared. There is one other thing that's become evident fairly quickly, which is that the power of legacy media to manipulate and control the narrative in this country appears to be closer and closer to non-existent every single day. So for Trump's enemies, what does that leave? Well, that leaves subversion and lawfare as two of their most important weapons. But the problem with subversion is that it's illegal, actually treasonous, as laid out under 18 U.S. Code Chapter 115. And this time around, unlike last time, there's a very good chance they're not going to get away with it, right? They're not just going to let it slide. So that means lawfare is even more important than before. And it's still proving somewhat effective, with lower courts securing a few wins in cases challenging the president's orders. There have now been over 100 cases filed to oppose President Trump's agenda. And if they can't derail what he's trying to do, they'll settle for tying him up in costly legal cases that stall or halt his mandate every chance they can get. One thing is for sure, if this administration gets tied up in the courts and starts playing defense instead of offense, it'll be over before we know it. It's really just about 3 short months before all we hear about is midterms, midterms, midterms. And God help Trump and his team if they lose the majority in the House or the Senate in those elections. Don't think voter fraud has gone away and you don't have to worry about it anymore, even though no one seems to have much interest in looking at the 2024 election, especially in places like California and at down-ballot races, right? There isn't much interest in examining those. But that doesn't mean that the threat of vote fraud has gone away. As long as the voting machines are still there, the threat of stolen elections is as urgent and pressing as it has ever been. And as long as everyone is talking about Elon Musk and Tesla and government shutdowns and all that, they're not talking about real accountability for those who have conspired against their own and betrayed their own people, then all of this is really just a big show, and it can be moved off Broadway in about 4 years' time without a whole bunch of effort. So what we have now is really an opportunity to end a system that effectively has enslaved us all. And this is a moment, probably the only moment that we will ever face in our lifetimes, where we can actually change the way things are done in government. So to me, that's a moment that cannot be squandered. We know that it may never come again. And we also know enough now to understand that we can't let those we trust to lead us abuse the blood and sweat and tears of hardworking, decent people all across this country. But it requires every single one of us to be vigilant and to speak up. And it's It's obviously not a moment for the faint of heart, but it's also not a moment that you can just look away. It's not like it used to be. And you have to remember that you can't complain about the results of work you didn't do. You also can't leave it to one man, because that's not going to work. And you can't just leave it to somebody else, because that's not going to work either. And the one thing that we know for sure is that all of us, but especially our children, deserve better.